Entrepreneurs, founders are perennial optimists. Frankly, if you are not an optimist, you'll not be in this business.
One of the things I have always done is that, reasonably delegate well.
That a melon changes color upon seeing another melon, right? And that's it sounds better in Hindi than it does in English.
Your passion is a signal. It's going to attenuate with distance in the org chart. You can't transmit it at the same strength to the fourth guy, fifth guy in the chain.
Not everyone should be an optimist in the company. You have to have a symbiotic relationship with a few captured pessimists in the organization.
I think pivots are an essential expression of your learning on the journey as you go.
When I actually, even started my entrepreneurship even much later, so they had a little bit of a financial cushion.
You can't use oasis and aquifer, man. If you're going with attenuation and modulation, you have to go with battery and recharge.
Startup Therapy with Sandeep Shroff and Gaurav Rastogi.
Hey guys, welcome to the first of our series of podcast webinars, whatever the latest name is. My name is Sandeep Shroff. I'm the founder CEO of myStartUpCFO. And we are running this podcast series, webinar series to tell the truth. This is a space where we'll discuss no posturing that the founders have to do all the time in front of investors, employees, customers. This is about what's inside the founder's head and how to manage that. And the first topic today is resilience. That how do you manage your head? How do you keep resilient? How do you bounce back? And for that, we have two great speakers, Gaurav Rastogi and Debu. And both of these guys are experienced entrepreneurs. They've been through multiple, wash and rinse cycle, and now they're dried and ready for another cycle. And they're going through the roller coaster. A little bit about myself, for those of you who don't know me. Now, I've been around the block a few times. I've been in the Silicon Valley for about 33 years. A geek, converted MBA, Wall Street, now a numbers guy. myStartUpCFO is a finance, accounting, bookkeeping company. This is my third startup, if you will. I've been now running it for 12 years. And I've had the privilege of working with most of you on this webcast and about 5,000 other startup founders. So I've got a little bit of a broader experience than just one company experience, thanks to all your experiences. And we'll discuss some of that in detail. With that, I'll hand it over to Gaurav.
Hi, Sandeep, and hello, everyone. My name is Gaurav Rastogi. I also, like Sandeep, I live in the Bay Area as well. I co-founded and sold an AI startup a few years ago, back doing it again. Also founded a school. I'm very interested in the idea of energy and burnout, and it's something that Sandeep and I talk about all the time. And so I'm looking forward to learning from this conversation.
All right, Debu, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for asking me to come over here. Past experience has primarily been in the enterprise space. I've been this is a 2x or twice time founder. I had a reasonable run with the first startup. It was around ML Ops and called DS Continuum. ServiceNow acquired us back in 2017, and over the next 5 years after that, we pretty much built out the entire ServiceNow's stack for supporting predictive analytics and AI within their portfolio companies. Last few years has been a second startup around. So I left ServiceNow in 2022 to start up a new area of work, which is around AI governance, which I think is becoming very important. And of course, the product today not only supports governance for AI, it also uses AI for governance and compliance in the other regulated areas. My general background has been, since I mentioned enterprise, yes, has been enterprise stuff. I have been with Oracle, Informatica, and Fair Isaac before in the corporate space, building products in these three areas. With Oracle, I have been with the database group for almost 15 years. I had been. Informatica ran the ETL stuff, primarily around the connectors and the repository. And finally, in Fair Isaac, I actually used that was actually my first learnings around with the actual use of AI, and it was catching bad doctors, bad dentists, bad pharmacists as a part of the FICO's healthcare fraud analytics. That's pretty much the brief background. Of course, in the process, I have done other things too, and including mentorship at IIT startups and things like that. Over to you, folks. I think that should probably set the context for today's talk.
Great. Thanks for that. Gaurav, you want to start off?
Sure, thanks, Sandeep. So the topic for our first conversation is the startup rollercoaster. Now, running a startup is necessarily an exercise where success depends to a large extent on survival. Now, being subjected to harsh changes in weather on a quarterly, monthly, weekly, daily, and hourly basis can take a heavy toll on mental and physical health. But some of the founders we meet, they're incredibly resilient. They seem to thrive on uncertainty, even gaining energy when faced with insurmountable challenges or a cruel twist of fate. Now, there are three things that we're exploring today. The first is challenges that come on account of time itself. Being a startup founder, you are in a way in a race against time. You may launch too early or too late. I've been there myself. And then how do you not let the ticking clock deter you? That's the first question we want to explore. The second is your teams, including your family. That's difficult to manage. You must inspire them with your passion and chase an impossible dream together with you. And the third is all those unknown unknowns, the tremors, the market shocks, even good ones, that can be hard to handle. But to begin, I want to talk about your sources of energy. Now, being resilient is about having access to an endless source of energy. Now, that might come from your passion or your drive or your team's collective commitment to a particular mission. Now, as a founder, I think of founders as those camels, Sandeep and Debu, right? They carry a whole bunch of water and fat in their backs. And then as they go through the desert, they consume all of that energy as they go through. In your case, being that you've been doing these long haul cycles, what have you learned about your sources of energy for the long haul? And where has that been tested? And what rituals do you have? I want to begin with that. But before we get into it, Debu, you've been through the entire cycle of starting, selling, earn out, and now you're back. Describe that process, how long it took, and then I want you to talk about your sources of energy for the long haul.
Yes, I literally gone through the process, starting and getting acquired, and then of course taking the product and making a really good revenue earning product inside a bigger company. Few things around that process is, of course, you have to take the opportunity to start it. Like my opportunity came around the fact that the stint at Fair Isaac was very interesting. Like I actually saw in first hand how machine learning applications were built, and coming from a background of Oracle, I found it a little, there's a lot to be improved upon. So that was an opportunity. But then the opportunity, to build on the opportunity, you can't just do it yourself. So obviously, I had to convince a few set of folks to join me in this journey. And the interesting thing about all the folks who were in the first team in the first startup, we all realized that we have to do it for a long haul. I mean, it's like you just can't give it up, try and give it up. It'll take some time because it also will ahead of time. So in my definition of opportunity, it's like optimism, patience, and perseverance, right? So all the three OPP really stands for optimism. So optimism, I'm an eternal optimist. Like I always think that that good things will happen. It takes time, but good things will happen. You eventually be on your path or the journey which you have laid out, and you have to be perseverant. There will be lots of case times when you may not have the right funding, you're running out of money, you have the checks are not being signed, the customer is delaying. So all of those have to be taken up in the right spirit, and you got to do it. And we lose opportunities, real opportunities on the way. Yes, so we did it for 5 years. We got acquired by ServiceNow because there's an opportunistic acquisition by ServiceNow. They were looking to fill a particular problem they had. They didn't have a predictive analytics stack. I was, again, the notion of certain time in life that things happen. In ServiceNow, I actually got the opportunity to lead their AI strategy and execution, and I was given a free hand. Normally, that doesn't really happen because the folks who acquired typically have a strategy. Through all of these, whole bunch of people were really supportive. I had a few individuals who were like an advisor to whom I could go and ask any question. There were questions I could not talk with my founding team members because they were personal. They were like personal things where I was trying to figure out what the next step to be because there's so many options to be taken, and sometimes things are not working out the way it is. There were my family. Our families were very supportive. All the everybody in the founders knew what we were in, and specifically, and my wife understands all the travails of a business because her father was an entrepreneur himself. So it was that support was there. I had support from my peer and colleagues in the professional circle because they would always support and give me ideas on how to take the product to another company or leads, and general were very but I would say they were supporting multiple times, very thoughtfully, encouraging me to follow the path which I was taken, which is not easy.
Thanks for that, Debu. My take on this, energy source is twofold. There's a physical aspect to it, that can you work the long hours, is your body fit enough? And then there's the mental aspect of it. Are you focused on your goal and can you execute to it? First of all, one thing I'd like to emphasize, Debu said, entrepreneurs, founders are perennial optimists. Frankly, if you are not an optimist, you'll not be in this business, right? I mean, you would not be crazy enough to pick up an impossible idea and say, I'm going to take on this big company, or I'm going to solve this, world-changing, society-changing problem. So coming back to how I manage this in a very tactical way, daily for me is going to sound cliched, but I do yoga every day, 1 hour every day. That includes some physical exercises, twisting and turning my body in various ways. It includes some kind of rhythmic breathing of some type, call it meditation, call it pranayama, whatever you want to call it. That's a daily exercise. I also do take a walk. I make sure that my skin gets exposed to the sun every day. Fresh air, sun can do wonders to your mindset. And from a long-term perspective, I have a goal in mind. I know why I started this company. The previous two ones also, I know why I started, except the goals didn't get reached. But I plant a flag very far off from me. If you have to walk in a straight line, you have to look at a point very far off and keep focused on that point and keep walking. And that straight line is your shortest path between you and that flag. That flag is your goal. As an aside, one thing I'd mention to all founders who care to listen, if that flag is money, if that flag is an economic outcome, then that flag is a wrong flag, because it's highly unlikely. The probability on that achievement is very low, and the ups and downs in the roller coaster become much more sharper and unappetizing if that flag is money. It can be money, but it has to be something more than that. There has to be some, philosophy-driven or some passion-driven part to that flag. Personally speaking, since we are going to talk candidly on these podcasts, personally speaking, for me, that goal is getting women back to work, especially young mothers, even older mothers who kids have gone to school and they're now empty nesters. That's what we are. I started myStartUpCFO as a means to get these ladies back to work. Nothing against the guys. Fathers can come back too. I'm the first mother back to work. The background you're seeing, guys, has been the same for 15 years now. I've been working from here, and kids were born here. Kids grew up in this room, and now they're gone, but I'm still here. My wife's been working out of the home for all her life. I've been working for 15 years at home. But anyway, so the goal I have is that, how many mothers can we get back to work? There are a lot of societal positives that come out of it. I'll not go into that. But the point is, that's my flag. That's what keeps me optimist every day, and that gives me the tactical steps. I have to hire more women. That's my goal. That's a very tangible thing you have to execute today. I have to interview 2 more people. I have to hire 1 more person. I have to go get more clients because we need to create job opportunities, etc., etc., etc. So that goal focusedness is where the energy comes from, the mental energy. And whatever your source of meditation / cutting out from the work every day for an hour or 2 hours is, whether it's yoga, walk, cycling, swimming, weightlifting, whatever it is, take your mind off the work, quote unquote work. So that's where my energy comes from. And so far, so good.
Even as you pivot, I know, Debu, when you started your previous company, you didn't start off as MLOps. It became that later. Did that change your source of energy in any way? Because you're obviously responding to the market shift and discovery.
So the pivoting is actually an important part of a product entrepreneurial journey, because you really do not know which set of cohorts, which set of people are going to be the true users of your product. Sometimes the idea is good, but the idea may be ahead of times, in which case there could be fractional use of the idea in a certain say application vertical or things similar to that, which could be captured, and to continue on this on the as Sandeep said, like the flag is placed far out, right? And there are multiple paths to get to the flag. Even in mountaineering, there are well-defined paths, but there could be multiple paths of attacking the summit. And obviously the first persons who climb the mountain have to find the way to that, and the following people can use the same path to get to the summit. It makes it easier. So when you're crafting out a new technology, or you're trying to find that use of a new technology, a new application area, or you're trying to optimize this, definitely there are ways in where you will see that you may be seemingly hitting a wall. I don't have a experience in the business to consumer space. Most of my experience is business to business, enterprise space, and enterprise space is usually a long haul. 1 or 2 years just goes away, and even trying to figure out how the product will bring in the first set of users to try it out, and because there has to be a leap of faith from the other side too. Because in enterprise space, you essentially believe that the startup is going to provide the right solution to the problem you have, but you also have to believe that they will be around and building it out for you, and it does not disappear, right? So there's definitely a leap of faith from your sponsor or buyer on the other side, and it takes time to build it out. So we kind of this path is not easy. Pivoting needs to happen, but if you pivot from across completely using different technology and all, then it's like I don't know. I have not done that. I've normally shaped what I've been building out to apply to a different vertical or a different set of problem space. And I see it easier in the business to business space because underlying technology being used in a B2B play is reasonably similar across a variety of problems there.
Yeah, in pivoting, one of the things I always, yes, you have to pivot, everybody knows. In fact, there is some research that on average, and again, averages are no number, but on average, a company has to pivot 2.5 times to succeed. There is enough research out there. What is a half pivot? I don't know, but I'm just giving you average. But I think my view, and for the rest of you, my view on pivoting is, you can't say I'm B2B, tomorrow I'll be B2C, or I'll be online e-commerce or something. You were in ML ops and then you want to become e-commerce company. It's not that kind of a pivot. Those are just too jerky. I think pivots are an essential expression of your learning on the journey as you go. You're meandering along. The customer goes left. You go, okay, I'll go slightly left. Customer goes right. You say, okay, whatever sells in the market, whatever the customers are telling you, they'll adopt. In the end, customers are your eventual source of money, which is revenue. We see money is going to dry up sooner or later. You can't be perennially funded and loss making. So you have to meander, instead of pivot, maybe let's call it a meander. I think that's the most telling, sign of success, that how well you can meander with your customers' demands.
Yeah, and as you meander, you'll find new sources of energy, because when the new customer comes on board and they have a problem and you're actually solving the problem with your stuff, that really spurs the team. Keeps moving the team around. I mean, I was actually a couple of weeks ago, I was in a dinner, and Bipul was talking about Rubrik, and he just took Rubrik public. And if people know about it, Rubrik was originally supposed to be the backup and recovery space, a stodgy company putting backup recovery through cloud. But essentially, it became IPO through cybersecurity space. I think that when technologies were reused, but they pivoted along the way from one market to another market. But because that market opened up a lot more opportunities for them, and they were able to capitalize it across a variety of small, medium, large customers. So there are. So 2.5 times probably pivot happened. Maybe half happened between the funding and the Series A or Series B, and the next two pivot were between the different next few stages of their journey.
All right, so speaking of meandering, I'm going to meander right along to the next question. You can be an optimist. You, as the founder, you can be motivated and resilient. You have the discipline and the gumption. But how does your personal motivation, your strength and drive, how does that get translated to the team? How do you infect them with the same amount of enthusiasm that you continue to have about the business and the idea?
For those of you who didn't hear in the beginning, I'm an engineer. I'm a computer science engineer who's done electronics a little bit also. And the reason I tell you that is I'm going to use a phrase, signal attenuation. That may remind you of your third year electronics class or something, second year maybe. Your passion is a signal. It's going to attenuate with distance in the org chart. You can't transmit it at the same strength to the fourth guy, fifth guy in the chain. So, but along the way, if you can find signal repeaters or signal amplifiers, your signal will travel farther in the org chart. What I mean by that, translating into a startup thing, I'm very passionate about topic X. I need a second layer under me who is near equally passionate, and then creatively can further, transmit that or infect that, call whatever word, to their teams. I can't talk to all the employees. Maybe first 5, 10, 20, 30 people, I can talk one-on-one. I can have, one-on-one touch with them at least once a month. But at 30, 40, 50 people, you're going to start forgetting people's names. You will not know, does John work for our company or not? You don't have in this remote world, you don't even have a face-to-face water cooler chat. So you need to find these signal amplifiers, people who are as infected as you are. But be aware that there is signal attenuation, and don't be disturbed or disappointed or dejected when you see that the lowest guy in the company says, yeah, I just show up for a job, I'm 8 to 5 guy. That's fine. You need all sorts of people to make a company happen. There'll be 8 to 5 workers. There'll be dispassionate workers. There are people who just show up for salary only. And there are some people who show up for passion and greatness or change the world attitude. It is okay. You will always have a mix, but your signal output has to remain at whatever 2 gigawatts, 3 gigawatts, you have to be transmitting. That's where the endless energy, the question one that we talked about, that's where your energy comes in. Because if you start flagging, that signal attenuation cause the whole thing to come down pretty fast. That's my view.
You're right. You're probably, I haven't run as a startup, a larger organization. Mine has been more of a few people. So I had the ability to work with them very closely. One of the things I have always done is that, reasonably delegate well, because I can't do everything myself. So all of us, we delegate. If I have delegated well enough that everybody is in the game together. And because of that, I may have a brilliant new idea about doing something. If that's not translatable by the folks who are in the trenches and get done, or I can't excite them enough to get that delivered, then it won't make too much headway. Other way around, if they have some idea which I can convert that into a sales opportunity, then 1 plus 1 is equal to 3. So typically that has that yin and yang kind of situation where I'm like, push and pull, how we call it, an ability for them to also participate in this company building exercise by either executing on the right things at the right time, or converting them into translating or providing being an additional voice in how to meander. Meander is exactly the way the modulate. If you use single attenuation terminology, it's modulation. So you modulate it and make that work. I have found that to keep the energy going. For all the folks who have been there, and recently. I have given people, like, I know somebody who joined my team, the current team, and she really wanted to work with us as a team, right? So she was got recommended by somebody to work with us. The workplace, the governance, compliance areas, and generative area is a very interesting topic. It has a lot of applications. We don't know which application is going to stick or which area is going to catch fire first. But she wanted to work with us, and I did not have any experience in the healthcare space, and she has a healthcare background. So literally, I've given her the entire charter of building the healthcare governance in the healthcare space out within our technology. So I believe those are ways in which the excitement can be percolated and continues to be sustained, and the aquifer is kept, fed, and we all are continuing to, flourish on around that. Oasis of energy.
You can't use oasis and aquifer, man. If you're going with attenuation and modulation, you have to go with battery and recharge.
It's the green world today. You got to think about climate and stuff you do for social good.
I'm going to have to go dig into my mechanical engineering undergrad to have a conversation with you guys. So I'll give you my reflection. My sense of building organizations over the long haul is that I must know my team's energy buttons because, if I'm the primary source of energy for them, then, it's too highly dependent on my daily flows, ebbs and flows of energies. But if I know every one of the buttons, why are they there? Some people like to work amazingly on, specific problems. They get their energy from that. Some other people like to be told what to do, but break it down and they'll plod along and they'll do great over the long haul. And so long as I know that what their buttons are, I find that the team chugs along. And even if some people are lagging, others will be ahead, and eventually we'll sort of move together. That's been my experience. That one is, I think everyone must agree or understand the vision that it must radiate some sort of energy to them. The other is, there's a saying in India, which is in Hindi, but I'll translate the English version. You know what the Hindi is, that a melon changes color upon seeing another melon, right? And that's it sounds better in Hindi than it does in English, but you get the idea that when someone's excited in your team, they're on their game, the other people just catch their energy, and then they'll charge up as well. And I've seen that all the time, that I may not be into it, but the other person's into it, and I get infected by their enthusiasm.
It's infectious. It is infectious.
Absolutely infectious, and brings the right people along. I think more you talk about what you're doing, it also, that openness and transparency is also important inside a startup. You cannot, compartmentalize and not let information flow. If it's good or bad, the information has to be shared.
In fact, I am a big fan of transparency and information flow for another reason. If there is bad information and somebody is going to get, passive, become demoralized with something, you'd rather drop that person off the bus than keep them on the bus. That's very important.
Yeah.
In fact, the workings of the startup will filter out people automatically.
Yeah, you have to be an optimist. There's not because you cannot always plan that I'll have like 5 years, 1 year ahead of money available. You may have to, things change along the way. It could be economic reasons. It could be other things, and those are events which nobody can see and nobody can predict, and you have to kind of adjust to the situation as they come along.
Yeah, I just want to offer just for the sake of an argument, offer a counterpoint here that I think not everyone should be an optimist in the company. You have to have a symbiotic relationship with a few captured pessimists in the organization that have enough voice, but their pessimism charges you to say, you know what, screw that, I'm going to prove this. And then that gives you the energy to prove them wrong. I find that this symbiotic, they have to be captured. If they run away, then you've lost your only source of negativity, other than, of course, the other person in the house. So then you have to do something else. But I find that it's good to have a team that has this sort of balance, that not people dragging you back, and people that offer a sort of resistance, which is important for your own thinking and your own energization process.
No, sure. You don't want to become an echo chamber of, all rara and somebody has to truth tell, but that can be done in less than a pessimistic way. The realist, there is, between pessimist and optimist, there is somebody called a realist, right?
Yeah, but Sandeep, I mean, I find that that's the role that you end up playing all the time. I've seen you. I mean, I've known you for 20 years now, right? You're often that guy in the room who's saying things that need to be said.
Well, I do that in my professional as a counselor and a mentor to other startups for sure. In fact, I joke. Some of you have even heard the joke. I become counselor to so many of the CEOs that I practically know that they're going to divorce their wife before their wife knows. And I'm not joking, because they have to rely upon somebody, and generally you can't talk to your co-founders, you obviously can't talk to your spouse, children, and you can't talk to your employees that I'm depressed, and then of course somebody has to be that realist. So that's a topic for another webinar, that how to find the right mentor and right support infrastructure around yourself.
How do you keep the family informed, engaged, but also duly aware of the upside and the downside?
But the two things on that depends upon the age and maturity of the family, right? I've been in the startup world since the kids were born, right? They're now grown up. They're 24 and 26. So my startup journey started when the kids were 4 or 5 type thing. So you can't be discussing these things at that level, right? Today, I discuss everything openly with my kids, right? Whenever they're home, I'm an empty nester now, they're no home. But so if they're very small kids, you have to compartmentalize. Maybe you and your spouse knows it, kids don't know jack. But as they come along the experience journey, age, you bring them in your experience journey and tell them what is appropriate. And that's a very parental decision, that what level of transparency you want to have with the kids, right? So that's been my view. So they didn't know jack shit when I started. They know pretty much everything in real time today.
But also your emotional availability, right? You're so deeply invested in this thing that you may not be physically or emotionally available to your family. How do you deal with that?
So it's funny you ask that even today, now that the kids are gone, 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. is my free time of the day. I work in 2 shifts. I work 7, 8 a.m. to about 3 p.m. Then I work again 8 p.m. to about midnight later, because I have always worked in India, US type startup things. And the 3 p.m. came by no magic number. 3 p.m. is when the kids came back from school. So I made sure my work was shut down before they came back. Whether they talked to me or not, my job was to feed them some food and all that, and they'd be on their own most of the time. But I kept no meetings, no calls in that time. That, okay, I'm emotionally and physically available. As I said, I've worked in this room for 15 years. I was the one home most of the times. And I made sure I'm available whether they want me or not. So I did not keep any engagements in that period. So that mentally I'm there, and there was homework, there was crazy science experiments I did with the kids, etc., etc. And even that to date, even now the kids are gone, that lifestyle still exists. And you have to somewhat compartmentalize that emotional availability. You have to somewhat compartmentalize. My funding round is going to hell. The lead guy just took this term sheet back, and here I am preparing for a birthday party for the kids. So you have to kind of live that dual life a bit.
It's probably the same. I mean, I actually, even started my entrepreneurship even much later. So they had a little bit of a financial cushion, and all of us all the co-founders and more or less had the similar cushion. So I don't think my kids really understood the difference between me working for a startup versus me working for a corporate life. Other than I also kept similar. I ensured that I drop my kids and pick up the kids depending on some days. If I'm traveling, of course, I'll make alternate arrangements. But They were and in my case, since I was the CEO and the founder, and I would have to the job is to sell, right? It's either sell to the prospects or sell to nothing was happening on the weekend, right? I mean, there's nothing I can do on the weekend. There's nobody available for me to talk on the weekend. So weekend was available for me to do either catch up on the backlog over the week and things I need to do, or I actually spend time with the family. So I think we were able to we were not. I was not crazily programming and coding away into glory and creating new features over the weekend and not spending time, right? I mean, so that those breaks allowed us to function as the normally what I would do is no different from our regular life. It's just that I may not have getting paid as much. I know my bonuses are not coming in because it's a startup. There's I'm trying to do all these things to keep the company running. But wouldn't affect. I was able to insulate a significant amount of the startup workings from the family, and of course, when we got acquired, that was a good outcome. But that was not the outcome I had told my kids that I'm trying to get this done and I will be doing this. No, it was just like there was a problem. The problem was something we solved. It's going to solve generically for everybody. We are all motivated to solve the problem, and if we do it, we will be known for probably the first MLOps company to be created and have done well. Similarly, today the first AI governance company, and maybe that will become the goal is that it'll be where everybody will go to as normally people go to, say DocuSign or Twilio or something like that, right? So the goal is big, and it's okay. The other advantage I had for my family point, they were not in the software world. My wife is a civil engineer. She doesn't understand software. My two kids are in the content industry that they do not like software. They love to create things. So, so technically they were not even interested in what my parents were doing. And that worked out really.
They'd be happy to know that dad is creating content today.
That is true. That is true. And I'm not using Notebook LLM for doing it.
We definitely summarize with Notebook with those two attractive male and female voices. All right. Now, moving along, when have you found yourself personally swinging between I need to persevere and then also thinking on the other shoulder, well, maybe sometimes walking away is the best thing to do? Have you seen that? I know, Sandeep, we've talked about this earlier a couple of decades ago when you've been through that.
Yes, it's all the time. First time was very hard because obviously I did not have a track record. So I had to, getting into and I was doing something which nobody understood what MLOps was at that time. And I was to go and people said, why, what MLOps, things it was very hard. Second time around, it's easier and partially easier. Okay, with a track record, at least could, have some initial startup money to run the company, but you still have to prove your the thing. You have to get the customers in, you have to prove the traction, you have to do all that. So every stage you have to you have to think, or you have to work towards those milestones which needs to be crossed for the next step up in the journey. And each step up it's not an equal step. Each step up means that you scale a lot bigger, right? And the challenges also become bigger. And the fun. So the goals are more audacious for the next stage, and it sometimes requires different set of people to brought in and everything else to get the thing done. Those challenges don't go away. It's not that it's done, dusted, and it's locked away. It's it continues. Even the company even in company Rubrik has they are probably got to do the quarterly run rates, and they have to meet the numbers and keep the stuff. So that is a continuous challenge you have to face and work towards.
My one sentence on that will be, one word will be dispassion. While you're passionate about the idea, it is okay to abandon something. It's my baby, but it's ugly. Let me just face it. It's okay. The whole point of you being an entrepreneur is you're a creative guy. You can think of a new baby.
Yeah, I have the same experience. Of course, I'm sure all boys will appreciate this example because I'm sure we've all seen those ants walking around, and you've obviously all boys. I've run this experiment in classes I teach. I said, how many people have actually drawn a hand-drawn line across wherever the ants were walking, and just to see what happens. And of course, invariably, all the boys have raised their hands, and the girls have no idea what the heck this thing is. So it must be something in the chromosome. But the deal is that when you stop an ant trail, right, they have a pheromone trail that they're chasing, and you disturb it because that's what you're trying to do. They will be phased. They'll be surprised by this thing. They'll be moving their antennae around, and then eventually they go around the problem. They find their way around it. And I find a lot of times this choice between persevering and walking away is really about saying, look, this idea is not getting any traction, but I need to get rid of this idea and go around, and there must be something around the corner where I can pick up the trail again and keep on moving. And that seems to work for me all the time, where it requires a mental pivot, a meandering of sorts, Sandeep, to quote your word. But I find that a lot better, even with the institute that we founded, right? It's been a few years. We're always pushing ahead. It's completely volunteer run, just to give a background. It's completely volunteer run. So you really have to hone in on each person's drives and sources of energy. But the collective effort, if it's not going in the right direction, you have to say, okay, what are we doing incorrectly? Should we stop it or should we move it? And invariably, we always have better ideas that come out of this process of thinking than we did previously.
I think we don't realize the amount of CPU power, the CPU cycles in your head, the old idea is consuming. Once you let go of it, you free up those CPU cycles to think of more creative stuff. But in the interest of time, moving on, I have just one question for both of you.
Yeah.
One piece of conventional wisdom that you have received as startup founders, which is complete BS.
I don't want to be measured or qualified by the amount of money I've raised and how many people you're working for me. I think the first question is how much money you've raised and what stage are you on? And that is it just drives me nuts sometimes, because it's like I'm trying to build a business. I'm not immediately trying to raise a lot of money and market does hell out of that.
Money raised and headcount should not be markers of success.
I deal a lot with the sales side of the startups all the time, and a lot of times companies go through this cycle of doom. They spend a ton of money in hiring sales teams and firing them within 18 months. And invariably, it isn't that you're hiring bad people. It's that you've not got the right idea in the market. No one's understanding your product, or your product is shit, or your messaging is bad. And companies spend tons of money hiring more and more seemingly great people, and they probably are great people, but it's a terrible situation. It's amazing how frequently I see it. It's amazing how frequently when I tell them this story, they describe that the previous 18 months have been this, and they go on to repeat it, never fixing the underlying problem that you just don't have fit right now. You just need to work on it right now.
My piece of BS advice that I think is of not that much value is these super long-term strategic goals. Right? People tell you have a strategic goal. Yes, have a strategic goal. That advice in itself is valid. But what goes with that is that you need to have a fixed path and all that, and you need to know the whole long path. That's all crap, because it's darkness after 6 months. For every startup, it is darkness after 6 months. You don't know what the customers are going to behave like. You don't know what employees will be here, who will leave. You know about the funding environment. You don't know anything about funding environment. So I think, to me, the value of that strategic long-term is not that much as people put it. It is just look down, one foot after the other. Even if you have a long-term strategic plan, remember that there can be a gap in between, valley of doom, as you call it, Gaurav, or whatever troughs. You may not survive that. So the biggest skill trick in all of this is survive till tomorrow. That was the first thing we said, but survive till tomorrow. Have you ever made a major mistake during an up period because you were overconfident? And what did you learn from that experience?
We were an enterprise player. We raised money. We had larger logos as accounts. our board advice was to go after SMB. We were not smaller market size, and so like smaller average ARR value and more number of them. We were just not prepared for it. So, getting the funnel ready for that particular set of harvest takes time, and that has to be done. That's where I think we messed up.
You have to know your market, you have to know the segment and the infrastructure that goes with attacking that.
You and I had done a segment a few years ago where, one of my takeaway was taking money before you're ready can often be a problem because essentially you're forced to spend it. And because like Debu, you were saying, you're not ready, the market's, it's not there. You'll burn the money. And then when you actually are ready, you don't have the ability to raise money anymore because you've just, spent what you had.
No, I was saying that my biggest quote unquote failure or mistake in the upcycle is hiring the wrong people and hiring too many. So it goes back to the same raising too much money problem that I thought we had it cracked, and I became loose on the type of people I was hiring. So the culture fit of people is very important, especially if you are till about 15, 20, 30 people, even after a little bit after that, the people who don't vitiate the culture of the company, whatever that is, the people have to be culturally harmonious to the company. Otherwise, the proverbial one bad apple can spoil the whole cart. So just make sure you keep your hiring standards high. I'm sure you've heard of the conventional wisdom of hire slow, fire fast. I'm a big fan of that. One more question that came through. Can you share an instance of a seeming failure that set you up for a bigger success later? And what was a failure in the moment but helped you out down the road?
Again, we had raised money. Our main investor decided after some time, after the raise, like a year after we raised money, to tell us that they're not going to follow us in the next round because they're essentially going to close out this fund. That was not very good news, because if your lead investor doesn't join you, it'll be harder to raise money for the next round. So, and it so happened that the company came around knocking to acquire us, and that's where we got acquired by ServiceNow. And I think overall that has journey. My first startup journey, I followed by the ServiceNow consolidation of the product idea, and actually being now used by 5,000 customers across ServiceNow's pool, has become very was more satisfying and more gratifying than I would have ever thought about in this journey. Right? It was not something I was planning for. It happened. It was fortuitous. It worked out well, and we are all happy.
And it's a source of big energy, ongoing energy, right? That my product is being used by 5,000 enterprises.
Literally. I always say that, every time you use ServiceNow's product, there's actually stuff we have built. So, and that is actually, in fact, that is what is helping me do the current stuff, right? Literally. Like the past ability of having done this all the way through. Gives me the passion, and my co-founders and all folks, and maybe the team, some of the folks we are attracting is because of this stuff we have done, and there's a solid track record, right? We didn't sell snake oil to ServiceNow. It actually works.
Gaurav, your plan?
My objective was, for at least my learning objective for myself was just locating this source of energy and resilience, because Sandeep and Debu, do you agree that it's really survival that's more important in a startup world than you're probably going to run out of energy more quickly than you'll run out of cash?
I think energy is. I will keep having the energy. I don't think I'm going to agree with that one. I will continue to push forward every day. But yeah. No, that is probably true, because startups fail, right? 95% of startups fail. They're obviously running out of cash, right? I'm sure they are still passionate about what they were trying to achieve, but eventually you have to have to let it go, as Sandeep was saying, and you have to let it go. So but you have to push it. And I still think that the longer you can stay alive and actually support you will probably end up being successful. It is a game of perseverance and patience, but you have to also not just hope for the things to happen, right? You have to actually work towards that.
You have to work. One foot after the other, you have to work. So the biggest, and my thing, just to wrap it up, my thing is the biggest marker or biggest predictor of success is pivots and longevity. If you can survive till tomorrow, every tomorrow increases your probability of a positive outcome. I think we look forward to having you again on the next topic. We have a few topics coming up, guys. We'll put them out on email. And for the people who joined in live, thank you very much. Hopefully this was some use to you. And if there are any follow-on questions, feel free to email me. Most of you have my email address. And we will look forward to having you guys on a subsequent version of this podcast. And for all the people who are listening on delayed version and at 2x speed on asynchronous mode, please do email with any questions that you have. All right. With that, thanks a lot. Thanks, Debu. Thanks, Gaurav.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.